There you go. Okay. This one is perfect now because what I did was I connect your voice through mine. So it goes to like that adapter filter. So
Okay.
the voice should be like, should be really good. So
Yeah, I got you.
anyway,
I
yeah.
don't do this often enough to have my own microphone.
It's fine. It's fine. It's all good.
Yeah.
Um, all right, Tim. So before we start, Happy New Year's. I know it's like way too late, but at
Uh,
least it's better late than never, right? So
Same to you.
yeah. How's everything with you? Everything good?
Pretty good. Not too bad. I
Busy,
got a
busy, busy.
little issue going on in the room right now, maybe. So we'll see.
Oh, okay. When is your next show? Where are you
Friday.
going next? Oh, this coming Friday?
Yep.
But that's gonna be like local show, right?
Yeah, it's a local show. A
Okay.
herp show.
Is it like a bigger show or just like a local, like a small shows?
It's local, but the guy putting it on, Sean Gray, puts got his promotion's called Herps. So he
Mm.
started to expand a little. I think he's doing a show or two in Colorado. I think he's doing something in Oklahoma now, maybe one in Missouri. But mostly he had
Okay.
started in Texas and Louisiana.
Right.
But it's he puts on a little bit better promotion than like a Repticon, so it's a little bit bigger than the Repticons, but I mean still local.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a pretty good show. I mean, he does actually. Well, I don't, he may be breaking it down to four now, but he was doing two. So there's there well two different shows right here local to us, but he does two a year in Slidell and two a year in New Orleans, which is only about an
Right.
hour apart. But there was
Okay.
potential of dropping the New Orleans show and just doing the Slidell. But anyway, sometimes I'll do a couple of the shows he does in Conroe, Texas, which is just north of Houston. But and that was his original show. But I mean, he gets a pretty good traffic through the door. I normally do really well at him, so it's normally a good show.
Right. Yeah. It's like really funny because like most of the like my breeder friends, they they say that this smaller for those local show actually give them like a better sales. I mean they do really good in sales.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I do too. I still, I find most of the local markets, I still
Yeah.
occasionally get someone coming in that wants to buy a higher end animal. But I mean, as a percentage, I'm selling a much larger gross ticket at Tinley or Daytona, or it's just a lot more higher end people coming through the door. But I mean, I
Right.
still end up moving a lot of numbers. But you know that $100 to $300 range is a great sweet spot for those local ones. You can move a lot of low end stuff. I mean, the nice thing is the cost is minimal. I mean, if I go to that show and it's I don't know, maybe $100 in gas. I drive home every night, so there's not even a hotel stay. The tables are way cheaper. So I mean, for bang for your buck, it's definitely a great show. And I never miss one. Especially I've been around here so long. I've got a big local customer base here, so I've already
Right.
got 4 or 5 emails and a bunch of texts on, "Hey, you coming? Can you bring this?" I have a couple pre-sales. So I mean, I'm not going to miss those shows.
Of course. Of course. Yeah, because it's like really funny that like most people think like a bigger show because we just had like our local show like a week ago in Anaheim, even though they call it like the biggest show ever, like but the sales wasn't that good according to like most of the breeders that like went there.
Yeah,
So
I was debating
mhm.
coming. I've done that show twice. I
Yeah,
did
you
it.
did.
I did it in Pomona both times. When
Hmm.
it was in Pomona, I haven't been to the one in Anaheim yet, but I've done Remy's show twice. The
Yeah.
crazy thing is, both times I did the show, I did $0 in sales. But
Oh wow.
I've told people when I did that show that
Hmm.
like the first year I did it, I went there and I walked around that show, and
Hmm.
I thought I knew. So this was maybe like 2010 or maybe 2011. So still
Okay.
a little ways back where there wasn't near the breeders there were now. So I thought I knew pretty much all of the breeders, in the country, or the bulk majority of them. And I walked through that
Right.
show that first year I went, And I mean, I don't know how many vendors they got there, but it's probably somewhere close to 300 or 400. And I walked through the show and I knew like 6 people. That's it. And so I
Oh wow.
realized that California show is
Mm-hmm.
it's really almost like a whole nother country market. And found that a lot of the people over there, even so, I used to do that show with Marshall because I ship my animals to Marshall. Marshall would drive them over there from Colorado. I'd fly in, and then we'd
Yeah.
share a table. And Marshall I had 2 cases that I bought, left them with Marshall, so he'd just bring my cases for me. And Marshall said the first couple of times he did those shows, the California shows, like he
Mm-hmm.
kind of had to build the trust of the community there and the hobbyists there, and then he started selling. So I took it as, I still, no matter I spent a bunch of money, didn't make any money. I would see residual sales for the next few weeks to a couple of months where I'd get more inquiries because I'd still handed out a bunch of business cards from
Right.
California. So I knew that was probably what
Right.
was driving it. But it was, to me, it was another one of those, hey, even though I'm not making any money, it seemed like, and maybe it's the wrong word, but it was kind of cliquish. All the California people over there would buy from their California vendors that were their trusted sellers to them. So you had
Mm-hmm.
to break into that market. So the only way to do that is to keep going. So, I went a couple times. And then there was one year that we sent a box of animals to Marshall, and just I don't know exactly where it got hung up or delayed or what happened, but box showed up,
Uh-huh.
and I think I'd shipped like 19 animals. 18 of them were dead. It was about
Oh
$20,000 worth
wow.
of snakes. And so I called Marshall. I said, hey, man, I'm not even coming. There's one snake. It's not even worth it. So
Right.
I didn't come that
Wow.
one year. But I've been wanting to go back again. It's kind of, this show is a little bad time of the year for me to do that, traveling right after the holidays. It's kind of tough. If I was local, I'd definitely be there. But I got a ton of friends that have been wanting me to come year after year after year, and I hadn't made it back. But I've been wanting to come back to that show because I do enjoy it.
Yeah. Because uh, things happens, and then not many people know if like all of these people, just like you guys, and then who travel all the way from the other state. It takes a lot of works, like monies, and then things that you have to prepare, and then shipping the animals, not to consider about if there's something happen with the animals. So sometimes like I have a really great respect to all of these people that travel all the way just to showcase their animals. So
But and I had really, for a while there, Marshall wasn't really doing any shows, so I was trying to figure out a way I could still come do that show without having support there. I do actually have a friend that lives in San Diego that would store stuff for me, and that when it was promoted, that was easier. Now that it's Anaheim, it's a little tougher from San Diego. But I got a couple other
right.
friends that, hey, ship me stuff. But I've been to that show enough times too, and hey, I love Dan and Colette, but look at Dan and Colette's setup there, and they just put out deli cups with some net. I said, hey, that may be the way to go. Is I can just
Uh-huh.
ship the snakes to myself, to
Mm-hmm.
to to either to the show or to my hotel. Pick my animals up there, and
Mm-hmm.
then just have deli cups sent there in another
Yeah.
box, and then just pack in
Yeah.
my bag some of that little netting and get out there and throw my snakes out in deli cups, and then ship them back to myself. Which I used to ship back to myself anyway because Marshall would drop me off at my hotel on Sunday. And then Monday
Right.
morning, I'd wake up, pack my stuff in the box, and then just get my taxi or Uber driver to drive me straight to the FedEx facility. It was next to the airport, ship to myself, and then go
Right.
right to the airport, hop on a plane. So, I mean, it was pretty easy to do that. But
Right.
I debated on doing that. That's still an option, just to get some stuff out there and get one table. And doing it that way, it's pretty easy. It's a fly in on a Friday, fly out on a Monday, so it doesn't take up too much time.
Right. And then for next time, you can actually use my displays too. I have 3 set of those ARS,
Oh, okay.
that I'm displaying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just let me know.
Yeah, I
So
think Marshall's doing them now. So I mean, I got 2 cases there. I know I could use. That's easy. I bought those years ago, and Marshall just has them stored over there. So either way, but yeah, I need to make it out there. But I think he's got a show in like the June time frame or something, and that may be a better time frame for me to get out there. Does he have another one mid-year somewhere?
yeah, in San Diego, I believe. I can
Yeah,
be
yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
Yeah, I can be
And a
wrong, but
bunch of people
yeah, should be
told me that
around
show
that time.
wasn't as good as the Pomona to Anaheim, but I like San Diego. I love San Diego, and it's just a better
Right.
time of year. And hey, it doesn't hurt to fly out there, and I'm sure I'd sell some stuff. So I mean, I don't have to go out there and kill it. So
Yeah, you know that up until like today, people still confuse you, with Mark Bailey.
all the time. And the funny thing is Mark's daughter actually works at a restaurant in my town. Mark
Oh,
was from a town
uh huh.
about an hour, a little over an hour west of us. So I mean, Mark used to be
Right.
down, but now he lives up there. But our people, I mean, we
Oh,
either way, I get phone calls, emails for Mark, and I send them to Mark and tell him to tell Mark, hey, I mean, I've been Mark for years, but yeah, they're
yeah.
confused all the time. There's another
Cause
guy that came in a while back
mhm.
too, named John Bailey. And
Oh,
I didn't get a bunch of confusion, but he bought something from me once. I used to run into him in Chicago all the time. I don't know if he's still around. I'd have to look, but that
uh
was the
huh.
only other Bailey I knew of at the time.
Yeah, this like really funny because we were talking back in last Tinley actually, when I was there, and then like one of my buddy talking about Mark Bailey, and then I was referring to you. So we kind of like like going blanks, like what what are you talking about?
For the
Like
funniest
all the
while,
time. Hmm.
there was a couple of years stretch in there somewhere, probably about 4 years ago, maybe, that they had
Uh
me and
huh.
Mark across the aisle from each other in Tinley, which was great
Oh
for us. But
yeah.
it really confused some people. But it was like, hey, if you're looking for, hey, I'm looking for, no, that's the guy across the aisle over there. So it was real easy to direct everybody. But
Right, right.
I think last year they flip flopped me. I had some other buddies came, and we got a whole aisle now. So that they switched my aisle that I was on for, I don't know, like 10 years. I was on one aisle, and then they flipped me. They just went. I went back one other aisle, but it moved me one aisle away from Mark. So I'm like 2 aisles over from him now.
Right. Tim, I have a quick question. How did you start it, like this whole hobby, or well, you're doing this like full time, right?
No, no, it's
Oh
not full
no.
time.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, a hobby, but I don't know. I don't know where the line's drawn where they say it's not a hobby anymore because it got too big.
All
Um,
right.
but I mean, I've probably told this story 100 times. But
Oh, you did.
the shortest story is I got a big pond in my front yard. So my daughter
Yeah.
was little. She was probably maybe 4 or 5 years old. She caught a
Okay.
baby water red ear slider in the pond
Ah.
and decided to try to keep it alive. And it didn't last long. It ended up dying. So when it did, she
Mm-hmm.
decided she wanted a snake. And there was a pet store that I
Mm-hmm.
passed every day on the way coming home. Just had a little sign on the side of the road that said exotic reptiles, I think is all it said. That was Sean Bradley at Exotics by Nature. That was his pet store. So we
Okay.
stopped in there one day. She wanted to get a snake, got in, looked around. She decided she didn't want a snake. She wanted a lizard. So she bought a bearded dragon. And I mean,
Okay.
I had snakes, iguanas, tarantulas. I had all kind of stuff when I was a kid, but I had gotten rid of everything for a long time. I hadn't had anything for quite a while. So we got the bearded
Right.
dragon, and so then it got to a point that I had to stop every week at Sean's shop and get crickets to feed the bearded dragon. So come in,
Right.
ball python craze. This was probably early 2002. So the ball python craze was really kind of just getting started then. So
Yeah.
Sean was something new or was breeding something, and he was still bringing in a bunch of imports at the time. So I just kind of
Mm-hmm.
looked around, did some looking, and decided to start doing a bunch of own research and studying on my own. And I mean, back then, about one of the only places you could go other than fauna or king snake, Ralph
Yeah.
Davis website, and Ralph had a message board on there, and he also had just a whole bunch of genetics dictionary and all kind of stuff you can go learn. So I
Yeah.
just went there and taught myself Punnett squares and genetics and how all that stuff worked, and then just kind of caught the bug and
Mm-hmm.
ended up buying a snake. Bought a normal from Sean. That was in at the end of no, I'll take that back. That was in the middle of '03 somewhere. Bought that,
Okay.
and then shortly thereafter, I got called Marine Corps to go to Afghanistan. So I was leaving
Okay.
for a year at the time. So I told my wife, I said, "Hey, let me get two more," and she agreed to take care of three, so they'd be growing while I was gone. And
Right.
then that whole Afghanistan trip changed around a bit. They ended up extending our stay there to 2 years. But when they
Yeah.
did, they split our unit up and did rotation. So I only stayed for about 7 months, and then I came home. So when I came home, would have been in around April of '04, I think.
Okay.
We went to, and I was home for that summer, so we went to Daytona that year. I bought a couple of animals in Daytona, bought a couple of animals from Sean. I think I ended up with about maybe 12 or 15 or something like that before I went back to Afghanistan, and then
Okay.
came back and got off. And so by that point, I mean, we already, I say 15 animals at that time. I think I had those three normals. I think I bought a pair of pastels, and that was like $3,000. And I
Mm-hmm.
bought an albino male and a het female, and that was like, I don't know, $2,700. I bought a
Okay.
hypo male and a het hypo female, and that was like $2,500. And I think that was the start when oh no, and then in Daytona '04 that year, I also bought a pair of het pieds, and I bought a VPI Xanthic male and a het female while I was
Okay.
in Daytona as well. I mean, I was bit by the Xanthic bug way then. That Xanthic male was $4,000 at that time. So
Right.
prices were crazy. So that whatever that little collection was, and then when I came back in '05,
Right.
I started buying a few more. Probably got up to about 30 maybe, and then bred in '05 and started getting some production in '06. And then it just wheels fell off after that, like everybody knows, and it grew.
Right. So you study from like a normal ball pythons and then get another two more and, and then here, up here you are now then, right?
Yeah.
How many ball pythons do you have right now?
Um, Probably,
Adults, like a breeding size.
yeah. So breeding size, females in there is going to be, probably about 220, 240 females,
Okay.
probably about 100 males. And then there's probably another about 50 maybe sub-adult females, and then another about 75 in a hatchling. I got an ARS hatchling rack that's full of holdback stuff from this year and last year that's growing and doing whatever, and then all the stuff that's
Right.
available. But like what I consider in breeding stock that's either adult or growing up,
Uh-huh.
my collection probably sits somewhere around a little over 400 probably.
Okay. And then you're not only working with ball pythons, right? Because I know you have another, like a species too, right? Other
Yeah, well,
pythons.
I got a whole bunch of other stuff. I don't have large numbers of a lot of the other stuff,
Yeah.
but just kind of running through the room in my head. There's ball pythons in there. I've been breeding Angolans for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Blood pythons I've been breeding for a long time. I just this year in Daytona, I picked up a group of diamond pythons. So I'm growing those up. I've been wanting those for a long time.
Okay.
I've got Brazilian rainbow boas, which just started breeding for me here recently. Matter of fact, this week was my first breeding for those, so I've been growing those up for a little while. That's fun. I've got
Right.
some Nicaraguan boas. I've got
Okay.
some Peruvian boas. I've got a small group of Hog Island boas. I got another small group. It's actually just a trio of double het for sharp albino bloods, BCIs.
Okay. Okay.
Then I've got spotted pythons. I've got some
Okay.
western hognose. I've got tricolor hognose. I've got variable king snakes, speckled king snakes, Louisiana milk snakes,
Okay.
uh, Sierra Juarez mountain king snakes. I've got Kenyan
Okay.
sand boas. Got rosy boas. Don't
Well, you
think
have
anything in the
everything pretty
way.
much, no?
Yeah, that's about it in the way of snakes.
Right. What do you think about the market? About ball python market like nowadays?
Uh,
What do you think?
I mean, I could probably write a book on how it's changed as well as anybody that's been around a long time. But
Yeah.
as far as the strength of the market goes,
Mm-hmm.
man, I've never really seen it bad. I mean, it's always been a strong market, and I mean the base is just continuing to get bigger. And a short story on that kind of it I ride a roller coaster sometimes, I guess, and I have to stop and think
Mm-hmm.
about why it's doing what it's doing and what I perceive the market to be. And I think a lot of people have a perception of the market. So, here
Yeah.
probably I want to say maybe around April or May, my website that you used to be able to go to crashed. So
Oh wow.
you could still look at it. Everyone could go to it. I couldn't update the
Okay.
back end of it. So
Oh.
pretty much from about May on, I wasn't able to update my website. So it just kind of lingered there for probably about 6, 8 weeks. Finally ended up finding somebody to build me a new site. And then that process could have gone quicker, but just my scheduling and, I'd get a big laundry list of to-dos and I couldn't get to it. And so probably took about 4 months to get the site uh, built and then launched. So lo and behold, it launches. When it does, my internet to my building was out for almost 2 weeks. So finally got that fixed. And then holidays came in, yada, 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 yada. So I probably didn't sell anything or very little through the website or online for the better part of the last 5 months of the year. I had a really good show in Daytona, had a really good show in Dallas, had a really good show in Tinley, and then two really good local shows there to cap off the end of the year. So I was able
Yeah.
to stuff enough money into the business account to know that I could use that money to float the business without any other sales for the rest of the year, which is what I did. But I just probably about a week and a half ago, finally sat
Mm-hmm.
down. This was a matter of me learning my new website, how it works. And I mean, there's bumps and learning something new. At the same time, I'd gotten a new computer. I lost my
Mm-hmm.
photo editing software. I lost a bunch of the stuff that I would use. So I had to learn a whole bunch of new processes to get the site going. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
I loaded probably about 60 or 70 new animals onto the site, and then also reloaded everything back up to Morph Market. And I did
Yeah.
that about 8 or 9 days ago. I've probably, I mean, I'm getting now on average 8 to 10 emails a day. I've probably done about $3,000 or $4,000 in sales in the last week, just because I have a bunch of inventory and I go in there and feed it every week, look at it and go, man, this is stuff people would love to have and they don't even know I have it.
Yeah.
So, and I
Yeah.
still have 200 animals to load. But so when I do something like that, I mean, the minute you
Mm-hmm.
put inventory up there that people are, they cruise Morph Market, they go to the new page, they look for new stuff, they see all the new stuff, and you get this rash of sales.
Yeah.
It does that. I mean, I can't tell you countless times I've done that where I just got busy, got static for a while, didn't do anything with the site, finally get a couple of minutes, sit down, load up 50 animals, and then my inbox loads up. So, I mean, to me, it just tells me that the minute you've got inventory out there, it's going to sell. And then if it stops
Yeah.
selling for a while, I'll go look and, it's inventory of stuff that, I mean, it's really a specialized project someone's not looking for, or, it's an animal that's been picked over a few times, so it's kind of lingering. And so those may take a
Mm-hmm.
little while to sell, but as soon as you load up new inventory, I mean, it sells, like it's Black Friday. So, the
Yeah.
market it's been that way for years and years. So I don't see it going anywhere other than, anyone that's paying attention knows that legislation is just starting to get hit a lot harder already here in the last 3 or 4 months. So
Yeah.
that could be the ruination if we're not fighting it. But if something like legislation doesn't come in and really hurt shows
Mm-hmm.
or interstate travel or shipping or anything like that, I mean, I don't see the market going anywhere. And there's still a million things to do with even genes that have been around a while.
Yeah. That's like really funny because every time I go to the show and then ask like like my like most of my breeder friends, I always get that those two things, like either they're doing like really good, or the other one is just like oh, the sales is like really bad, blah blah blah. But one thing that I want to ask you, because I'm really curious to know your your perspective about, do you believe about creating your own market?
Oh, I mean, there's been numerous instances and proof of that
Mm-hmm.
existing. I mean,
Yeah.
Ralph Davis, Pete Call, Brian Barchak, Kevin McCurley, way back when they had their own markets.
Yeah.
And the two big ones that come to mind now is, obviously Justin Kobilka and Oz.
Mm.
And those guys have built their own markets. And I mean, there's some stuff I've done quite a bit in the last year with sales on red stripe clown stuff. But
Yeah.
I know I'm not pulling the same dollar that Justin's pulling. I just can't do it. But at the same time, I'm not upset by that. I don't market myself the way Justin does. Again, Justin's doing it full time. I don't. So I've come to terms with the fact that, hey, I don't have the time to market the stuff, so I can't get mad because he's doing something I'm not doing. I mean, I can do it, just quit my job and do it, but I haven't.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a way for you to make your own market. And then I've seen other people who have made their own market with specific species that they have become the go-to guy for
Yeah.
whatever it is. And even if it's something as simple as Dummerell's boas, Brazilian rainbow boas, they just make a high-quality animal that anyone that thinks about a rainbow boa goes here. Dummerells, you're going to go here. You're going to, for specific colubrids or old school rat snakes, you're going to go to this person. So, you can definitely build your market around a species. And if you just focus on it and grow, the quality of those animals, you build your own market. And then you can do it with inside of, again, ball pythons and, sell the same thing the next guy does, but he can't sell his, and you sell them all day long for more money than him because you built that. I mean, that's what Justin did, and that's what Oz did. And so it's definitely something you can do. And I've given that advice to a lot of new people that come on, and there's a lot of things I've done wrong. I've enjoyed what I do, and I'm to the point now where probably the last 2 or 3 years, I really got to the point where I started getting a little burnout on some things. And then what I said was, okay, back in the day when I started with some of that mutations I was talking about, there weren't very many mutations. So there was probably a run there for 6 or 7 years where I had every mutation, or I may have been missing one, but I thought I had to have all of them because I wanted all of the variety. Along the way, I got to the point where I realized you can build your own market and you don't have to have everything. I mean, I don't even need everything for my customers. If I have a place to direct them to go, hey, go get this. But I'm going to stay excited about what I'm excited about. So probably in the last 3 or 4 years, a lot of the projects that I've divulged from myself were just either projects that didn't sell really well for me, or I got to the point when I went in the incubator and something was pipping. If I just didn't get excited and feel like I wanted to dance a jig when I saw it, I'm like, okay, that project's not for me anymore. Let me get rid of that. And that way, every time I open a box of eggs and something's pipping, I'm excited because it's something I'm excited about. So I focus that way. And I've tried to tell a lot of people is if you're getting in new, it's easy to focus on something for 2 reasons. One, it's focus and you won't get yourself spread too thin. And B, it's an overwhelming market to come into now. If you got $1,000 in your pocket, you want to buy some snakes, and people go, what do I get? And I go, I'm glad I'm not in your shoes because I don't know. With $1,000, you can get so much. I don't know how to narrow it down. So, focus is definitely something to do. There's been projects along the way, too, that I looked at, and I was like, I really didn't like that project. And I can, 2 of them that always pop into my head are albino spiders and bamboos. I make a lot of albino spider stuff now, and I still don't own a bamboo. But when both of those first came out, I just said, man, I really don't like those. Meanwhile, they were selling like crazy. So I said, hey, from a business perspective, you probably screwed up. Sometimes it may be worth it to breed something that you don't care for that much if the market's demanding it, because what I could have done is sold $50,000 worth of albino spiders and bought what I liked. But instead, I just didn't do that project. It wouldn't have taken much to throw 2 albino spiders or a pair of bamboos or something on the side, produce a bunch for saleability, and not keep any. So, but again, then you're dealing with something you don't like. Maybe it's not smart. That's just different ways to view it and look at it. But I mean, to me, that's, I had a ton and tried to have everything and then realized along the way that I don't recommend that. I mean, unless you're going to be a larger breeder that is trying to produce 400, 500, 600 plus clutches a year, then hey, you get everything.
Right. I'm so glad that you mentioned that because focus is probably one of the things that not many people have because they think or they feel they have to have everything, right? All the gene, all the morph, all the combos. That's
Yeah.
not necessarily true because, I think we both kind of like believe that most people that successful, like most of these breeders that successful, including like you, um, only focus on few things. They don't
Yeah.
have like, all the project that available in the market nowadays. You
Yeah.
know, yeah. And then the other thing that not many people have also is that the patient because they
Yeah.
feel they want to jump in and they want to go to the top like really fast.
I mean,
It's kind of like
if
hard.
you stay around any length of time, you'll see it over and over and over and over again. I mean, I can't tell you how many hundreds of people I've seen come and go. And even so,
Hmm.
my first Tinley show I vended in 2006, and it's
Yeah.
just been a super interesting ride for 14
Uh-huh.
years to watch. Who's still at Tinley that was there when I started going there, and who's not, and how many people come, and you see them twice and never again. And so, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a huge revolving door of in and out in that hobby, and yeah, it happens all the time, and it's primarily due to that one fact that they don't have patience. The patient story that's the most hilarious to me is about Angolan pythons, and
Uh-huh.
when Angolan pythons really kind of first became getting available, a
Uh-huh.
bunch of ball python people bought Angolan pythons, and so
Okay.
they thought they were going to be like ball pythons. So they raised them up 3 years, 2 years. They start trying to breed them. They don't get any eggs. Breed them, don't get any
Mm.
eggs. Breed them, don't get any eggs. Now all of a sudden they're 4 years old. They're breeding. They don't get any eggs. They get impatient. They sell them. Man, the freaking sweet spot for an Angolan python female is 5 years old. So they sold all these 4-year-old
Oh.
animals. All the people that bought them next year breed them, get eggs. Those people that sold them thought they just weren't any good at breeding them. They just didn't realize the species just takes a little bit longer. So you get impatient,
Oh
and
wow.
there you go, you lose out. A lot of the boas are just you're not gonna get a boa to breed at 2.5 years old like you will a ball python. You're not gonna get a male to breed at 8 months old like you can a ball python. Your blood pythons aren't gonna do the same thing. I mean, really, the sweet spot for those, same thing, 5 years. I mean, I get a blood female. I just pretty much put it in my head. If she really looks good at 4 years old, I might give it a shot. But even then, it's throw a male in. If you go great, I'm not banking on it. So some of those you really have to have some patience with that. I've got some Louisiana milk snakes now that I had the zoo actually here wanted to get some from me, and then
Mhm.
tons of people in Louisiana love Louisiana milk snakes. Anyone that knows that specific locality, but nobody produces them, and the babies are, I mean, ultra tiny, and that's part of the reason is they're a pain. But I've got a pair now that I've had for, so they were both, the male came to me at 7 years old. The female was an adult that was wild caught, so I don't know how old she is. The
Mhm.
male was wild caught, but he was a baby when he was wild caught, or a year old, so I knew the age on that. But I've been breeding them now this was my 4th year breeding. They're in brumation again. I haven't got an egg yet. So, I mean, some of those, if you truly love that species, you're going to stick with it, but the patience has got to be there. You're never going to see the golden egg.
Yeah, I didn't know if Angle and Python gonna take like at least 5 years before they go like matures and then go breeding. I didn't know that. I thought it's like 3 years
Yeah,
or like some shorter than that.
I'm not. I could be wrong. I've never heard of
Okay.
anyone
Oh.
getting them in 3.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe there's someone that got them at 4. I don't know about, but 5 years pretty much seems to be almost a standard with Angolans. They just take a little bit
Mm,
longer. I don't know why. It's not the males. I think you can get a male ready in 2.5 years probably, but the females are just going to take a little bit longer.
takes more longer. Okay. Um, what project that you're working on right now, ball python wise?
So my biggest focus probably for the last 2 years has really been trying to turn focus to double recessive stuff. That's what really, really excites me. A, I think they hold
Yeah.
their value really well. B, I think there's still a ton left to be done with that. And C,
Yeah.
just that's the true test of patience. I mean, that's a project that takes time. My first one I bought a pair of double het true ghosts that ended up not proving out. That's a really long story, but I produced this and that out of it, ended up breeding it back and got
Mm-hmm.
production out of that. But I bought that in 2005. I bought those double hets, and I produced my first true ghost in 2015. So 10 years to get there.
Oh, wow.
Historically, it takes me almost 4 or 5 clutches to hit double recessives. I hit my first hypo clown this year on clutch number 5. I hit my first axanthic pieds after clutch number 5. I got 2 clutches last year of double het lavender snow stuff and missed on both of those. And this year the females aren't wanting to go because they didn't put on weight. So it's rewarding when you get to see that stuff hatch out. But I've always been a huge fan of hypo and axanthic stuff. I love pied clown stuff. So I'm trying to make a mix and a combination of all of that stuff. So that's really been big focus this year. I will say I do have, matter of fact, I should be cutting those eggs here probably in about 5 days on Sunday. I don't cut eggs anymore. I let everything pip. But what I did learn this past year is that, in my opinion, scaleless ball pythons do not pip. So one of my last clutches of scaleless that I got, I went in there and I think it was scaleless head to scaleless head clutch. I want to say there was 6 eggs. I think it was 6 eggs. And I went in and 2 eggs had pipped and the other ones didn't. And I was going to leave them and I said, man, I wonder if I got a theory. I said, I wonder if those 4 eggs that didn't pip are all scaleless. And sure enough, I cut them all. 4 of them were scaleless.
And they're all.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done a large enough group sampling of that, and maybe someone else that's produced them could contradict me. But I personally don't think that the scalelesses are going to pip really well. So I've got another shot at scaleless pieds in the incubator. I produced that one a year and a half ago, and she had some issues and she died, so I don't have her anymore. Someone else I saw did one here a few months ago, so there's another one out there, but have another shot. So I'm kind of excited about that right now because that was a really cool animal. I'd like to hatch some more of those, so we'll see. Yeah. But outside of that, it's probably going to be the double recessive stuff, and I've in the last 2 years really got a ton of interest and been making a ton of sales and a ton of people that really like the True Ghost project. So I'm doing hopefully produce a fair bit of that stuff this year, do a good bit more with that. I should produce quite a few axanthic pied stuff this year. Hopefully, maybe I'll get the pin version and the inchy version. I made an inchy pin axanthic pied last year, I believe, and it's really phenomenal. So hopefully I can make some more of those. And then, man, I thought there was one other that I was super excited about, but it's slipping my mind for some reason right now. But anyway.
Yeah, the one that you just produced recently, that Typhoon project, that was pretty cool. I think it was like GHI something, right?
Yeah, that was a GHI hypo sugar Typhoon. Although you got that a little wrong. So Typhoon's not recent. I produced the first Typhoons in 2006 or 7.
Right.
So I've been producing that stuff for a long time. And so if anyone that's listening to this, I've been saying this for a year. I haven't gotten around to it. I really need to. My web developer forced me into trying to get an Instagram page built, trying to do some more with the YouTube page and getting that linked. And all 4 of the projects that I have that are like my projects, and some of them are known, some of them aren't. All of them have been sold to people. I mean, so they're out there. Never sold for a ton of money. And it goes back to a comment I made earlier, and that is I haven't marketed any of these projects because I haven't had the time. So I'm not going to ask people for a ton of money for the mutation because it doesn't deserve to be a lot of money spent because people don't know. I still get people say, hey, I had an email a little while ago, right when you were calling, about my Mirage gene, and said I can't find anything about it. And I've been producing that since like 2011. And I said, well, you can't find anything because there's hardly anything out there. Just haven't had time. At this point, the Mirage gene, the yellow gene, the what gene, and the Typhoon are 4 genes that I've proven numerous times over. I've done all kind of cool stuff with them. There's enough variety in there that it's hard for me to try to get into one place to do another collection page. But what I've really been wanting to do, because it'd be easier, is just break down each mutation with a video on YouTube and kind of run down. Here's the history of it. Here's some of the stuff I've produced with it that I still have. I've sold some stuff. Here's some direction I want to go, and a little bit more history about are they dominant, co-dominant? Why? What I've done, what I have, what I haven't proved, and so hopefully this year will be the year I really get focused on that because I'm getting more people asking about it, especially now that I'm making cooler stuff. And my
Yeah.
goal really for the last couple of years is to start trying to combine all of those genes. I always
Yeah.
thought it would be really cool if I could cram all 4 of them into one snake and have this cool snake sitting on the table. And when someone asks what it is, it's 4 genes that they've never heard of. So I actually think I've got 3 of them in a gene. I've got quite a few animals that have 2 of them in the gene. So when that stuff starts doing a little bit more, I need somewhere because, again, I didn't market it because I don't have the time with a full-time job and all of this. At the same note, I really don't have the time to respond to numerous questions about what it is and just repeat myself. So I'd rather have something there that I can direct people to. Hey, what is this? Hey, here, go watch this video, and I can just send you a link. And it shortens my time output on explaining it and really gets something visual for everyone to see. So it's really going to be a focus. I still probably got the next couple of months of focusing on getting the inventory back updated. I got a few images on the website that my developer grabbed old pictures and he may have resized and they're kind of grainy. And so I'm trying to update some of that. So once I get the site back into a place I'm a lot more comfortable with, I'm probably really going to try to put a focus on at least getting one of those videos done. Because I know once I get one, it'll be motivation for me to get off my butt and get the rest of them done. But we'll get that done
Right.
soon.
Yeah, if we can just go over like really quick, just like really simple, like Typhoon is gonna be codominant or like dominant, and then
Yep.
how does it
So
work, and then
yeah.
what is
So
the origin, and then
I
we can
don't
just
know if
move
I can
forward.
go super quick, but I mean, I won't take too
Yeah,
long on it. But so
yeah,
to back all the way up to the history of that project, for
mm-hmm.
people out there, and I know he's not as mainstream anymore, he's still around, but Ted Thompson at Susquehanna Ectotherm
Okay,
is who I got my original Typhoons from. So this is back in, I want to say, '05 in Daytona.
okay,
I went there. Back then, lineages and lines of hypos was a really important thing still. I was
yeah,
dead set because it was my favorite was true butterscotch line hypo stuff, which was a Mark Bell line way back when. So there weren't a ton of people you could find that had pure butterscotch or had butterscotch because Orange Ghost was still big then, Yellow Ghost was big then, Green Ghost were still around then. But Ted had a hypo female and a bunch of het females, and so I needed a hypo female and I wanted 2 het females. So picked out my hypo female, and then Ted's like, hey man, here's a big old group of het females. So I went through there and I picked out like 2 nice females that I wanted. And so fast forward to now, looking back, the reason why I probably gravitated to those was they were Typhoons. That's why they were prettier. So I brought him back to Sean's table actually because I didn't have a table. He was holding stuff for me. His cousin was there. His cousin looked at him and went, man, you got 3 hypos? I said, no, man. Hypos are $2,500 a piece. I got 1 hypo and 2 hets. He goes, those aren't hets. So brought him back home, and then for the next few months watched him shed out. That was the old school way of telling if you had a hypo or not. Hypos shed with no pattern.
all right,
So when they shed, they had pattern. So well, it's not a hypo. So grew those 2 het hypo girls up, and then bred them back to a butterscotch hypo male. And the first clutch I produced, I got 5 out of 6 hypos in that clutch. And 2 of the hypos looked really different than the other 3 hypos. And Sean looked at them, and I looked at them, and a couple people looked at them, and said there was something else going on with those. And I wasn't sure what was going on or what it was, but held on to those. And then the one normal that was in the clutch was actually a Typhoon as well. So it was 2 Typhoon hypos is what was in that clutch. Watch those things grow up, and I mean, essentially, the biggest marker for how you could tell that is they were just super orange animals. So they were way oranger than any of the other hypos. And even as adults, I still have both of those animals.
yeah,
A lot of hypos I find kind of get some blue and gray undertones, and they turn yellowish and lose a lot of orange. These guys don't. As 8, 9, 10-year-old animals, they're still super, super orange. So then once we got that figured out, I didn't even notice anything. I don't think the other female that was a Typhoon, the first year she produced, I just didn't think she was a Typhoon because I didn't get any in that clutch. She missed the next year, and then the year after that, she produced Typhoons. Actually, I think she made the first Typhoon hypo cinnamons I made. So then I realized they both were. And at that point, I had a type that I think the regular Typhoon that was in that first clutch was a female. So I had produced a male by that point in time. So I bred Typhoon to Typhoon together. I have to go back and look. I think it was around 14 maybe, or I think
Okay.
14. So I produced an animal from that clutch that was just 10 shades oranger than the rest. So I thought that was the super. Raised that guy up, bred him back to some, I think I bred him to a normal just to see, and ended up producing some Typhoons. Just recently sold that particular animal to a really good local customer of mine because it's just a phenomenal looking animal and he wanted the gene. But I haven't tried it again. A bunch of people have asked. I just haven't gotten around to it for whatever reason. So I don't know if it's incomplete dominant or not, but it's definitely dominant for sure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then I want to say maybe 2 years ago, I produced a whole lot of just Typhoon het hypos, probably like 12 of them that year. And it was the first time that it happened, but about half of those Typhoons came out with super, super busy pattern on them. So I don't know if there's another pattern piece into it that I haven't fully figured out how it works, but I mean, all of them really have the orange coloration. And I mean, there's as much variability as in Orange Dreams or anything else. I've had some that are just similar animals and some that are, you can see it, but they're a little harder to pick out. But that's kind of really the short history of that project. I've made quite a bit of stuff with it, but because it came out of original het hypos, a lot of the Typhoon stuff you see is going to be attached to hypo. It's not linked because I have separated it, but it's just that's where foundation stock. Backing up to way at the beginning, Sean, I think, probably bought the first hypo one from me. And when Sean got it, at the time, we hadn't had anything named, so he just called it Bailey Hypo. So I know people have been to Sean's facility and said he's got these Bailey Hypos, and those are Typhoons. But shortly after that, I had named the project Hurricane, is what I named it. And I named it that in 2006. So anyone that knows the Hurricane gene running around now, that's Hans Weiner produced Hurricanes in 07. Well, I had not really spent a bunch of time trying to get mine onto World of Ball Pythons. I hadn't talked to Alan at that time. I'd done a bunch of stuff with Alan way at the beginning of that. But the one thing, I understand what Alan's doing, and that is he won't ever put any pictures on the website that have more than one animal in the picture to avoid confusion on what it is. But the Hurricane was one that I couldn't take a picture of it and really get it to where if I put it on there, you just go, what is that? It's a normal. But if I could take a picture of it next to a normal, you go, oh, I see it. So I just never got it on to World of Ball Pythons. Well, Hans got his on there before me. But I had still continued for years to call it Hurricane because I didn't know that for quite a while till someone told me. So you can go back to like some old ballpythons.net, old post and see Hurricane. And then finally, I think one year I had a Hurricane Hypo Mojave that was breeding, and I put that on there, and Hans and a bunch of people jumped on Facebook and said that's not a Hurricane. And then, you know, I'd sold some animals to Dave Palumbo, and Dave was working with Hans selling some stuff. And so I got to talking to Dave one year at a show and explained what was going on and said, hey, look, I have another name in mind. I'm going to change the name when I get production next year that's actually available because I don't have anything now. And so my Hurricane morphed into Typhoon. So it's had a couple names along the way, but anyone trying to look for that name Typhoon, that probably really only came around maybe around 15 or so is when I named it that. But that's kind of the short or long, however you look at it, history of how that gene worked.
It's a really good name, for that name, that particular like that of Typhoon, because the female that I get from you, it's just like smoking right now, like insanely smoking.
Nice.
I got her into that clown pie project, so
that's
so
gonna be
when's it gonna happen?
I haven't been anywhere near clown, but I think it's gonna work really well with clown. I think the color is gonna work well with clown when you get the Typhoon color, and even just a plain Typhoon clown. I think it'll really look good.
Yeah, because I was thinking to make the the double hat, and then I'm gonna pair all the offspring back to my Hurricane project. I think it's gonna be like super insane, like busy pattern.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, we'll say that is a clutch that I've got in the incubator. I'm pretty excited about. That should be coming out soon. So I've got a Typhoon Yellow Gene Mojave het hypo that I bred to a pied female, and that clutch is saying it's due in about a week. So
Okay.
I'm hoping I can get some Typhoon and Yellow Gene het pied stuff out of that.
Yeah.
Because I think it's going to work well with pied as well. So hopefully I'll have some hets of that soon. And I mean, if I can get a
Hmm.
male raised up quick and breed it back, maybe I'll see some Yellow Gene and Typhoon or both in pied, hopefully in another year and a half or so. So I'm kind of excited about that too. But I think
Yeah.
it'll work good in clown stuff for sure, even pied too.
Yeah. Let's talk about your yellow gene.
Sure. So that one is
Yeah.
funny. So that one actually, I think, if I can trace it all the way back, is that first normal I ever bought from Sean. I still
Okay.
have her actually sitting in my rack in my room now. But
Okay.
the yellow gene, it all started. I made a Mojave spider het hypo. This is probably back in maybe 2012 or probably around 2012, somewhere around there. And this
Okay.
thing just looked different than any other Mojave spider. And I had bred that animal. It was bred to um,
Mm-hmm.
a hypo Mojave that I had produced, bred to a
Mm-hmm.
spider that I had produced. That was
Okay.
from that normal female. So the spider, I just recently sold her, matter of fact. She was produced in '05, but
Uh,
she had thrown
okay.
numerous babies with nothing special. But she was a phenomenal looking spider, and actually, there's probably a bunch of old ballpython.net people will know that animal because they called her what's that girl's name from Baywatch? Pamela. They named her
Oh,
Pamela because it looked like she had just one
Anderson.
barbed
Yeah.
wire stripe running down her back.
Right.
Gorgeous animal. And
Uh,
so I've got like great grandparents to this Mojave spider that I made. Well, the first year I started breeding that Mojave spider, I started
mm-hmm.
getting these Mojaves that were like super yellow and didn't look like Mojaves. And then it started affecting the further I've gotten from the original animal, like F2 and F3 animals, the
Yeah.
yellow gene starts impacting the Mojave to the point that there was a couple times I had what I thought was just a plain yellow gene, and then when I'd breed it, I'd get Mojaves out of it. But it didn't look like a Mojave. It started distorting the Mojave pattern. So that's one that for now has kind of been attached to Mojave, although I have separated it and got some stuff. So then there again, fast forward now, that's another one where I thought I didn't have Mojave in it, but I bred a yellow gene to a yellow gene Mojave female to try
Mm-hmm.
to make super, and I made what I thought was the super. Once again, like the Typhoon, that's the only one I've ever made. Tried to breed him one year and made a non-yellow gene out of him. So I can't confirm it's incomplete dominant, but at this point, I haven't proven it as incomplete. Um, but the first thing that I really made that a bunch of people got excited about, and I really haven't hardly taken pictures. I've only brought it to like 2 shows, but I made the yellow gene super Mojave. And so anyone that's grown a super Mojave long enough will know that they get white, they still keep the gray head, but they'll get like some
Yeah.
dirty mottling on them, and they lose that
Yeah.
purplish stripe, and they're kind of grayish. And so the yellow gene super Mojave just got like a big fat neon highlighter yellow stripe down the back that's just stayed
Mm.
there. She's 6 or 7 years old, so I mean it worked really well with that. Since
Okay.
then, I did make 2 yellow gene hypos that are just phenomenal looking animals, and a local customer of mine bought both of those. Um, and then, like I said, this year I've started mixing it in with some of my other genes and stuff. So I know I made quite a few of those. I think 2 years ago, I made about 4 or 5 of them, and they sold like hotcakes, except the ones I kept. But I made some
Yeah.
yellow gene, sulfur, Mojave, orange dreams, and some yellow gene. I made a bunch of yellow gene, orange dream sulfurs that year as well. And I mean, those stuff, they sold as fast as I put them up. So I probably should do that again. But
Yeah.
it's going really well with those. So some excitement there. And so, I mean, I have made yellow gene Typhoon stuff. And I've made yellow gene. No, I didn't make yellow gene Mirage. I made yellow gene Typhoon Mirage. I made one of those this year. I think it was a yellow gene Typhoon Mirage Mojave, something else. I think I probably ought to get a picture of that thing here soon and post it up. But it was a pretty neat animal.
Yeah, because that Mojave yellow gene that I get from you, I pair her to my one of my import project that I call it Enzo, and then I proven now that gene to be dominant for now. It could be
Oh, cool.
incomplete dominant. I'm not sure
Yeah.
because I
Right.
like that yellow tint like all over the back from that yellow
Yeah.
gene. And
Yeah.
then the
Yeah.
Enzo tend to bring the red color, so it has like the red yellow tint color. So I
Oh,
was like,
nice.
they just I'm trying to do something and then see if we can
That'll be
get
fun.
something cool.
It'll
Uh huh.
definitely be fun. I still need to do a little bit of work, I think, on the yellow gene, understanding which ones are the nice ones, because I have some, like my original first yellow gene Mojave that I produced female, I have her still. The
Yeah.
yellow is nowhere near as prevalent in her. But if you really know what you're looking at in a Mojave, when you look at some of the yellow gene Mojaves that have lost some of the yellow, they
Yeah.
still don't have as much green tone to them as a regular Mojave. So, I mean, I can tell they're yellow gene, but some
Mm-hmm.
of them have lost it. Some of them are still phenomenal looking, as sub-adults and adults. They still hold it. So it's one of those I still need to work on. A little more line breeding to that to get to the higher end stuff and get to the stuff that produces really nice and not as much the stuff that's a little less visible.
Okay. So that we clear, yellow gene doesn't really attach to Mojave, right?
No.
You were able to separate them, and then it's like its own single gene, but you still have no idea if it is incomplete dominance or not. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I don't think that I've made a plain yellow gene at this point by itself. But I have
Okay.
made like yellow gene hypo. I've made stuff that doesn't have Mojave in it, but I don't think I've made just a yellow gene that doesn't have
Got it.
Mojave with it. But I have separated
Got it.
Mojave from it. It's just, that project, and then the only other one we didn't talk about really is the Mirage project, and that one
Okay.
is another one that people say, hey, why does
Uh
all
huh.
Mirage like attach to yellow belly? Well, that's because my original animal that I produced that started
Uh huh.
making the Mirage stuff is a pastel ivory. So I was
Okay.
only able to make yellow belly mirages for a long time. And then lo and behold, I finally made what I thought from one of the daughters that was not a ivory. It was just a super pastel mirage.
Okay.
That one finally made what I thought was the first mirage by itself that I have. I know there's another one or two out there. That's the only one I had. That boy is now
Okay.
4 years old and will not breed. So I still can't figure out anything with that one. So I have people that ask me, what is there a super to that? Is
Mm.
it incomplete dominant? What does a plain mirage look like? And I tell people, hey, I still can't completely 100% confirm what a regular
Mm-hmm.
mirage looks like. I have what I
Mm-hmm.
think is one, but I haven't been able to get him to breed. So he's 4 years old
Okay.
now, won't breed, so I can't prove that he's a mirage before I say, hey, this is what it is. But essentially, if I'm correct in it, and the other one that I've looked at, it from the top looks like a yellow belly, but when you flip
Okay.
it over, it doesn't have any of the modeling on the belly like a yellow belly does.
Okay.
So essentially, it's very similar to yellow belly, but obviously they're not allelic because I make yellow belly mirages, and I mean it's just a really amped up, brighter, a lot of blushing and flames coming in, added to anything that it goes with. But it's so the typhoon stuff started in a hypo project. The yellow gene
Yeah.
started in a Mojave project. The mirage
Yeah.
started in a yellow belly project. So I've
Got it.
produced a lot of those combined, but so
Mm-hmm.
far they've all proven to not be attached or linked to them. They can be separated. It's just I had a harder time doing it. So customers that bought something from me had an easier
Yeah.
time doing it because it was already kind of separated somewhat when they got it. But yeah, they're not linked as far as I can tell.
Okay. Yeah, because when you breed that mirage to yellow belly, you're not gonna make any like ivories, right? So
No,
technically, they're not. Okay.
no, and I
Okay.
mean the fact that the first animal that produces those is a pastel ivory mirage. They couldn't
Mm-hmm.
be a because you can't have three alleles on the locus. So I mean it can't be.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Um, for the last one, do you want to talk about your what the gene?
Yeah, sure, Ken. That's one that
Just to calm
really is.
down.
Yeah, I mean, I really like it. There's some stuff to do with it.
Uh-huh.
That's been the one that's really been slow moving. So that
Mm-hmm.
gene that started from. Actually, me and Sean were doing a show together years ago. He had a tower with a pile of normals sitting in the tower. And I mean, from probably about 20 feet away, I spotted a ball python normal in there. And I said, what is
Mm-hmm.
that? And he goes, I don't know. So I'm buy it. So I bought it. Still
Okay.
have it. That's how that project started. So it was a weird looking normal. But so the first breeding for him, I just bred him to a pastel. Didn't put him to anything else. It's one of those, it is a normal till you prove it. So I wasn't going to breed it to everything under the sun. I knew it
Yeah.
wasn't an import. So it came out of something Sean bred. And so bred that to pastel. I ended up making 2 pastel what's. So I kept those 2 animals. Didn't breed the original what again. Just raised those 2 up. Wanted to breed those together and find out what was going on and kind of keep him sitting in the rack. So bred the 2 pastel what's together. And then out of that first clutch, I ended up with, I don't remember exactly, but I ended up with a super pastel, super what. I know I had at least 1 super pastel what. I think another 1 or 2 pastel what's, and then a plain what female. So that was the first time I had a plain what female, and was the first super that I made. So the plain what female and the super pastel super what female now are probably 3 years old, and they're probably like 900 grams, 800 grams. They are
Okay.
just those I eat this week, I'll eat next month. And I mean, they get on a
Yeah.
binge 3-4 weeks in a row and then quit for a month and a half. And so they've been a pain. But I'm probably to the point now where I'll probably breed them. They may just be smaller girls, and I may just start doing some breeding with them to see if I can't get them bumped into eating. Sometimes that'll work if you're breeding something that kind of stagnates and it's got some age. It'll kick in, start eating because it thinks it needs to lay eggs, and that'll work. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
Then, when I first made that, I had quite a few people said they thought that that may just be another chocolate type project, or
Okay.
sable type project. I got sables a long time ago. I had chocolates and super chocolates a long time ago. I'm actually the first person that ever proved that sables and chocolates were allelic. I bred those together and made a super. So I've made quite a few of those animals, enough to look at the what gene and say, it doesn't look like a chocolate or a sable. However, I see the similarity, and I also somewhat see how the super chocolate, super pastel, or excuse me, super what, super pastel kind of looks like the super chocolate version, but kind of looks a little different to me as well. So I'm not sure on that. I've wanted to try to get that proven and figure that out because people
Mm-hmm.
asked, and probably asked for a couple years.
Yeah.
So this finally, I had just a plain old chocolate girl laying around that I could breed to. So she actually is due to lay eggs probably in about 2 weeks or so. So I have the
Okay.
original white male bred to a chocolate. So that'll be interesting. It'll be cool to find out. I mean, if it is a super, hey, great. We just have another line of chocolates out there.
Chocolate.
I've only sold a handful of those animals because I've only made a handful,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't sell them for a ton of money. So anyone that would have got those won't be out a fortune, if it just proves to be another chocolate. But if not, then hey, it'll be something else. But hopefully this year I probably will give them another couple of months, and I may start introducing the original what male back to that what girl and the super pastel super what girl that are small, in hopes that that'll trigger them into feeding and maybe get at least 4 or 5 eggs from them and see what else we can do. But to me, the other big kicker is until I get the what girl up to size, I don't necessarily even have a make super what's without having some other influences, because the super pastel super what at this point can't ever throw a plain super what. At minimum, it'll be a pastel super what. And then, I have a pastel what girl that she only likes to lay every other year. She's a mouser, so it takes her 2 years to get back to size. And so she should breed this coming year as well. So hopefully this coming year, maybe I'll have 2 or 3 females that we can throw some stuff on. At this point, everybody wants to see some more stuff interjected into it. At this point, I don't really want to do that because I have 3 girls, and I really just want to put the what male in there to try to figure out better what the super looks like and what that can do. So, it's still probably not going to do a ton with it. I may try to get the what male and throw him into one other something just to see. Now, I did last year make a group of 1.3 pastel what het clowns. So those are all growing well. The females are probably 700-ish grams. So maybe another year or so, and maybe I can see if I can't get some what clown stuff out. And I say that really, that's the super. The pastel what het clown male is ready to go. So I'll probably throw him at least on a clown this year just to see if it does anything cool there. So I wanted to get it in something else, but I need to get it crammed in somewhere along the way here too, into some of the typhoon and the yellow gene stuff, because that was still the ultimate goal. So maybe I may do that. I don't know if I'll have anything ready this year for that or not, but we'll see.
Yeah, yeah. That's actually a really cool project because I remember back in Arlington we talked about it, like that
Yeah.
for that what project. Yeah. Uh, Tim, before we close this down, last question: what is your advice for people that want to jump into this hobby?
So we kind of touched on it earlier. I mean, really,
Yeah,
I
we did.
think
Hmm.
patience is a big one. I mean,
Yeah.
so it's kind of counterproductive. I do sell proven breeder stuff, but I tell people in general, it's probably not the best way to go. I mean, I've bought a lot of early on proven breeder stuff, and I'll tell people that buy my proven breeder, hey, if you want to go home and try to breed this, feel free. I've found that a lot of times proven breeder animals will take a year to acclimate to your collection. So you're really not gaining much time by doing that. Grow a
Yeah.
baby, enjoy the process. I mean, people jump in, and then within 6 months they say, I want to breed. And I go, man, you barely know how to take care of the babies you have. You haven't even tried to get a problem feeder started eating yet. Like, don't introduce more problems into your problem. Get some
Yeah.
babies, enjoy watching them grow, get what you want. The second big piece of advice, and no matter how many times I give this to people, I still see them not heed it, but man, don't go buy a bunch of males. People like to buy a bunch of males because typically I can get the genes I want and they're cheaper than the females. But then all of a sudden I
Mm.
try to tell people, hey man, I think you got too many males. And next thing you know, it's a good customer. He comes back and he's got 12.4. And I go, what are you going to do with all that mess? You got a cool collection, but if you're wanting to breed it, you're not going to get anywhere. So
Right.
get your females. Don't worry about your male the first year unless you just find an animal you absolutely fall in love with. You have to get that male. But otherwise, buy a couple of females. Keep them. You buy babies, grow them up, enjoy that process of growing them, keep that patience going, and then really the next big thing is I find a lot of people now I don't. The reason people like Oz and Justin have built their own market in the market is because of how much focus they put on what they're doing. And both of them have very long-term goals for projects. I've fallen
Yeah.
myself into the trap of not planning a year and just throwing stuff together and then going, well, I've lost a whole year because I didn't plan that right. Or someone buys this and they buy that and they buy this and they don't really, I mean, I remember when I used to buy animals and I bought these two animals because I was going to pair them together. And 3 years
Hmm.
later, obviously, I added some more stuff and could have changed the plan. But I mean, I stuck with the plan. I have bought these to pair them together to make this. And so
Yeah.
stick with it. At least try to get some kind of forward-looking plan that's a year or 2 years out and try to stick to it because it'll really help you with your direction when you get to that point. So, I mean, the big ones are just start with babies, take your time, have patience, get you some females, get a good female group going, and then you can buy the male the following year or the year after, and then just really try to put some focus on a plan for that stuff that you're buying and kind of know the direction you're going, or else then next thing you know, you're looking for a male and you don't know what to get. If you had that plan, you kind of at least know where you should go. And then the last one really is just, if you're looking for something, don't jump just on the first one you find because it's the cheapest. I mean, try to find a real high quality animal. It's going to pay dividends tenfold down the road. I mean, that's a big one that just a lot of people aren't doing is they buy the cheapest one they can find or they want a deal on it. And
Yeah.
hey, people have to buy pets, and so we all make animals that are higher and lower quality from one another. And
Hmm.
the lower quality ones go to pet people. But if you're really looking
Yeah.
for something to breed and get production and think that you're going to be the next Justin Kobilka and make $1 million, you better start with some high quality stuff if you really want to compete, or you're going to have a problem with it. And so that's probably the biggest piece of advice I can give to anybody that's jumping in and getting into it. Other than that, just sit back and enjoy the ride. It can be as long as you want it to be.
Yeah, that's actually very true. Tim, thank you so much for our time, and then I'll see you maybe next Tinley.
Yep, no, I do all the Tinleys. I won't miss those for sure. So I'll be there in March. And
Uh, are you going to Arlington too, or no?
yep, yeah, I'll be in Arlington. Yeah, I'll be in
Okay.
Arlington. So I've got this show this weekend here locally. I'm on the wait list. Hopefully next weekend is the one in Conroe. If I can get on that wait list, maybe
Okay.
I can do that one. And then, yeah, I mean, right around the corner, February. I mean, Arlington's really not that far away, to be honest with you. Nor is Tinley. So
Yeah.
that's my next four, and they're back to back right there next couple months. So Tinley,
Awesome.
Tinley, Tinley in March is probably one of my favorites, just because it's a little smaller than the one in October. So I really enjoy that show.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. All right, Tim. Thank you so much, and then we'll talk again soon.
No, thanks, Chris. Have a good
All right.
one.
Thank you, Tim. Okay. You too. Bye.
Bye bye.